There's literally only two things we need to do to be able to plan our networking.
At the end of the day, if I don't put the time aside on a regular basis to do this work, it slips away.
We tip people in the top, and then as we go down, we filter people through and work out where they fit. The most important thing is to take care of the people who are already in our network.
So it's important to look for opportunities to be useful to other people.
It really is very simple. We could talk about this a lot more, but we want to get those two very simple points across to you. And the first one is, welcome to Business Builders. We are your hosts. I am Brenton Gallant.
And I'm Ron Tomlin.
And today we're talking about planning how to network, or actually planning your networking activities. And the good news is there's literally only two things we need to do to be able to plan our networking.
One is to think about how I reinforce the network I already have. And the second is, how do I get people into my network?
Easy.
That's it.
So it's basically nurture and then fill, right? And in the last episode, and we've had a few episodes on networking, probably 7 or 8. And I think in the last episode, we went to a live event because we like to practice what we preach. So when you'll see our live event episodes, we're basically taking exactly what we're talking about here and doing it in a live event scenario. The last one was a 25-minute masterclass on how to network. Great episode.
Yeah. Summarizes all the things we're talking about.
I was the host.
Yes.
So it seems a bit self-serving that I say it was a great episode. But anyway, yeah. So before we did that, we had Matthew Holmes. And before that, we were talking about how to map your network. And we talked about the fact that everyone's really got a bigger network than they think they've got. So go back, if you haven't seen that episode, if you haven't listened to it on either one of the podcast platforms or watched it on YouTube, absolutely go back and listen to how to map your network, because that's the basis for what we're going to be talking about now. Now, we said there was two things that we nurture. The most important thing is to take care of the people who are already in our network, because frankly, they're the ones who are going to help us fill our network. And we'll talk about that in a second. And the other one is, Ron was saying, is to fill, is to tip people in. Now, we basically, like any kind of sales or marketing funnel, we tip people in the top. And then as we go down, we filter people through and work out where they fit.
And this is all based on the idea of Dunbar's numbers, where you have your core network of 5 people. They're people that you're interacting with almost on a daily basis.
Yeah, and the people in your core are going to be people that you're just going to know who they are. There's no planning who goes in there. That's about alignment. And those people you're going to be, as you said, talking about naturally. So every single one of us should be able to name who's at the core of our network.
Then there's the close network of about 15 people, give or take. There are people who we readily interact with, but probably not on a daily basis.
Yes.
And they form our close contacts.
They're like running mates. They're business people who really align very closely with the purpose that we've decided that we want to fulfill through our networking. And if you want to find out more about purpose, we've got an episode on that as well. But those 15 people are probably people that we're going to be planning. How are we going to do this together? How are we going to do that? Very close.
Active network, which is the next 50 or a circle of 50.
They're people who are going to probably be trading contacts with us and really actively trying to help us to get ahead in business and ahead in our purpose as well. I think it's important to make those distinctions.
And then the next 100, sitting in that 150, are the people who are what we call the engaged network. We can pick up the phone, have a coffee with them, or ask to have a coffee with them, and they'll readily say yes. Yeah. So they're people we interact with on a regular basis.
So when we pick up the phone, they're going to answer it, as opposed to everyone else who just lets it ring through.
Absolutely.
We're in that world now where everything's a scam. So they recognize they've got your number in their phone.
So if we're talking about the first activity, which is strengthening your network, it's really the core and close network that we're talking about. You've got to spend time, you've got to schedule time to make those connections, to make sure you're interacting with those people on a regular basis to keep and maintain those close connections.
So I think the word that we like using is cadence when we talk about it, right? So we set up a cadence, and that would be something that you would diarize. It's really important to diarize spending time with people. Look, we talked about the core. You're probably going to be spending time with your core anyway, but those part of that close network, the 15, you really want to protect that group, and you want to be able to spend time with them probably every fortnight in that group. And the people in your active 50, you want to see each of them maybe once a month. I know that's a lot. That's 50 people. So
I'd say once a quarter, but that,
No, I wouldn't say once a quarter at all. Absolutely disagree.
Okay.
The people in your 50, you want to see once a month. The people in your 150, you'd probably see once a quarter.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I'll agree with that.
Okay. So, and look, there's a reason I say that, and that is because the 50 are the most valuable people you've got in your network, and that comprises the 15 and comprises the core. The 150, the 150 is like your filter. Now, when we talk about Dunbar's number, that's obviously the research from Rob and Dunbar. We call them our networking circles. And so there's, as we said, and we're going to repeat this again and again because we want it to really sink in for ourselves and for you who's listening to us. There's the 150. That is our active network. Within that, there's 50. So that makes up part of the 150. That is our really active group. Sorry, that the outer group is our engaged. The 150 is our active. The 15 is our close. The 5 is our core. But outside of that, there's still 500 people that would probably be people that we recognize, we know their names. And beyond that, there's 1,500 people we'll recognize their face. So there are much broader circles, but it's the 150 that's most important. So I guess what we're saying, and you about strengthening your network, I call it nurturing. You want to make time and find ways to spend with all those people. And I think the planning part comes down to how do we do that? So I say that outer 150, if you want to see them quarterly, find ways to group people together.
Yeah.
Take people out to dinner.
Yeah.
Like a group, like 20 people.
Regular things that you're doing. I read a lot of articles. And when I think that somebody would be interested in an article, I shoot it off to them.
Yeah.
And say, I thought you'd be interested in this. That's a form of reinforcement. I'm doing what I think is something useful for them. And so I'm strengthening that network by giving them some information they might not have had.
Yeah, sure. So you can also invite them to networking events, the networking events that we love to spend time talking about how you don't get much results. But a really good purpose for networking events is actually taking the people in your network to them to spend time with them. Because one, you kind of create a buffer for yourself by having people with you that are part of your network. Because if there's too many people there who are just trying to get your details and so forth, you've got a group of people in that event that you actually really want to spend time with. And you can work as a unit and work out, are there any other people here we should know? How are we going to get to know them? Oh, well, I'll introduce you. I know this person. But you can spend time with 10 or 20 people from your network if you invite them along to a networking event with you.
And so the importance of mapping your network that we talked about last time comes to the fore here, because in having looked at your map, you'll identify where the gaps are, where there are deficiencies in your network. So the process of building your network or reinforcing it is about identifying those gaps and seeing how you can reinforce this network that you have.
Yeah. So a couple of things just before we move on to point number 2 is, as you said, we need to diarize things. So we could diarize, do we go to events? We diarize, well, what? You set up a morning a week, depending, everyone's different. I might say on a Tuesday before 10 a.m., I'll call 6 or 7 people.
Absolutely.
On a Friday after lunch, I'll talk to several more. You plan out who you're going to call.
And the difficulty with not doing that, with not putting it in your diary and getting a regular cadence, is the fact that the urgent will always supersede the important.
Yeah.
And this networking or building a network is important for the future.
Yeah.
So you can't leave it to chance.
Yeah. And you know what also just occurred to me based on you saying, you flick out articles to people? A really interesting idea would be to create and I just thought of this, would create a newsletter for your network. Like you talk about, I really say that you should keep in contact with your top 50 every month. You could pop out a newsletter to them, or you could just send different things through. The digital methods we have of staying in touch are really good. The important thing is to have some sort of interaction. So just sending an update is not enough. You need some way of having a back and forth interaction, even if it's digitally, even if it's on LinkedIn, even if it's on some of the social channels. And I say that you really do need to find a way to have a physical, I'm talking to you. There's nothing replaces that, even if it's on Zoom. Nothing wrong with Zoom, as long as you can FaceTime, see each other's faces. That might be a bit less than the digital mechanisms.
I still think coffee's a great way of doing things, but that's just
50
me.
coffees a month is a lot.
It's a lot.
When I
50
think about
coffees
it.
a day might be too much.
But I would send out email communications to at least my inner 50 once a month minimum, but usually more than that in some sort of fashion. But it will be things, like you said, that they'll be interested in.
So reinforcing that network, getting that network for you to work for them and them to work for you, incredibly important. But beyond that, in terms of building into the network, the areas where you're deficient, that's the next activity that's really important.
Filling the cup.
Filling the cup.
Filling that outer circle.
Yeah. And that's where looking for opportunities to understand who people are, understand how you can help them, and that's an important mindset that we'll talk about next time. Understanding who they are and how you can help them, and looking for opportunities in every type of interaction that you have with people. And people, I think, they look at where's a networking opportunity, but looking for opportunities in every interaction, social interaction, dinner parties, school get-togethers with other parents. All of these people are potentially people who you could be useful for and for whom could be useful to you in your network. So it's important to look for opportunities to be useful to other people.
Yeah, okay. So that's the fill part you're talking about there.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about the nurture, and now we want to talk about the fill, like you're saying there. How do we find people we don't know? That's what you're getting at, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you haven't mentioned a networking event there at all. You mentioned dinner parties and other things.
I'm just saying people often think only about networking events.
Agreed. So I often think about going out and doing courses. Like I often say, if you want to meet directors of other companies, go and do a director's course. There's one here in Adelaide called the AICD director's course, company director's course, I think. If you're a young person and in your early parts of your career and you want to meet other people, go do upskilling events that are put on by industry bodies, because there will definitely be other people there that you can meet. Find different ways of getting to people other than networking events. And I think the key to that is finding a common interest or finding a common goal. Like
learning a new skill.
Yeah, these upskilling events are perfect because the goal is we want to learn a new skill, we want to learn a new thing, we want to improve our skills. And because other people are there doing the same things as you, there's a non-threatening environment where you can just talk to people about the subject matter and you'll start to build a rapport. It's once you've built that rapport, then it becomes easy to go, hey, shall we stay in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. And that gives rise to the idea that your current network can also help build your connections with other people.
You know, this is controversial, but I actually like where I don't have to give a business card, where I just say, shall we swap details? Yeah, business card becomes easy. But I often will swap a LinkedIn connection or get their phone number or whatever else. I very rarely use business cards now unless I'm at a trade show because it feels more personal.
And it also, unfortunately, feels a little bit contrived handing over business cards.
Yeah, it does.
In our culture, anyway.
It's still important in business, very important in business. But if you are with people where you are having a common goal, not using a business card is sometimes more personal than using a business card, because you're saying, I'm really interested in you. This isn't just a business transaction, because sometimes handing over that business card is like a business transaction, you know?
And we're going to talk about that more next time when we talk about actually getting out there and doing it.
So we'll talk about tactics in the next episode. But anyway, a little bit more on filling the top of your networking funnel, because again, that outer circle is a bit like a filter, because when you put people into the outer circle, they say in sales world that it takes something like 8 to 16 interactions with someone before they purchase from you. Well, it takes a number of interactions to build trust. And once you get to trust, on the other side of trust is faith. And that's where people start to get into more inner circles within our networking environment or our network that we've built, as you were kind of saying earlier. So that outer circle really does become a filter, that active group where they'll answer your phone when you ring them. That becomes a filter for where do they really fit? Will they move into the active 50? Will they move into the close 15? Obviously, usually people move into the active 50 before they get into the close 15, but
and I think we have to accept with our networks that people move out of some of those circles.
Absolutely. And that's what I was saying earlier. There are circles outside of that 150, but the 150 is the group that align most with our purpose and where we're going.
What I think I'm saying is that once we've built our network, some people go, I've got a network, thanks very much, don't need any more.
Yeah.
But they do change.
That's right.
They do. The relationships change.
Sometimes it's a change of career. They're going to go in a different direction.
I think there are transition points for everyone. We move a job, we move a career, we move to a different location. Yeah. So under those circumstances, it's always important to be thinking about what's the purpose, what network am I trying to build, and how am I continuing to develop that network as it changes.
So really what we're kind of saying here, or what you're saying, is the mapping our network piece and the planning how we network operate together in like a loop.
Absolutely. Iterative.
It's like a feed me cycle, right? Yeah. So someone moves out of my network, it creates a gap. And so the planning our networking activities, we keep filling that outer circle and keeping that circle full, the gaps can then be filled. But if there's no one there, if we're not progressing, if we're not going out and doing the work of nurturing and then filling, we won't have anyone to fill the gaps.
And that's why, again, the cadence of putting it in your diary is so important, because this activity, which will have long-term consequences, needs work all the time.
Absolutely. So look, it really is very simple. We could talk about this a lot more, but we want to get those two very simple points across to you. And the first one is that when you're planning your networking activities, the most important thing is nurturing the people you've already got. That's actually a planning activity. And so many people don't consider that that's planning how to network. They want to keep getting new people. Well, no. Work with the people you've got. Really make that your focus. And if there was an 80-20 rule, I'd say that applies to networking. I'd say spend 80% of your time nurturing who you've got, because they, one, will introduce you to people that will fill the gaps, because it's much better getting an introduction from somebody who knows you very well than it is from going out and trying to find people cold turkey. Because when people know you well, they know the other person as well. They know if you're going to click in a business sense. Often that has a better chance of working. So you cultivate the people you've got, and that's where the gold is going to be. But the second part of planning is then keeping that outer circle, as we were talking about our networking circles, which are based on Dunbar's number, keeping that outer circle as the filter and just putting people in at the top, and then allowing them to either filter through or filter out.
And that's it.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's simple to say, but it takes effort.
It takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, it takes a lot of effort, and you've got to be disciplined about actually calendaring it like you would any other kind of work, because the mistake I think we make sometimes about networking is taking our network for granted.
And this is especially important when you get busy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm particularly busy at the moment with university and Vistage and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, if I don't put the time aside on a regular basis, do this work, it slips away.
100%. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about the actual doing, how to do the networking, the tactics piece, the piece that everyone talks about, Ron.
Yeah, we've built up all the foundations in talking about the myths associated with networking, in talking about how to get your purpose for networking, the definition of networking, how to map your network.
And today we spoke about how to then plan from the mapping. So that's great.
Yeah, but next time it's all about the doing. And there's plenty of stuff out there talking about how to network and techniques and tips. I think we've got some interesting perspectives on what works and what doesn't.
And if you like our take on networking, then please hit subscribe and follow us. We'd love to give you more of this, and we would also love to hear from you. The people who've reached out to us so far have been so helpful and shared some really good feedback, which has been great, and given us some good ideas as well for the future. So we'd love to hear from you.
It's all about perspective.
Yeah. So till next time, when we talk about the doing, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. And don't forget to keep on building.